Hey guys, welcome to another voiceover tutorial. My name is Sakimi Chen, and for this term's voiceover tutorial, we're going to be doing something different from what I usually do, which is to show you guys how I paint certain things. This time we're going to go into another direction. We're going to talk about career path as an artist and different ways to make a living / money as an artist. Now I'm going to be doing in part 1 and part 2 or part 3 depending on how detailed I go into each subject, which I kind of want to go in detail because I think there's quite a bit of points for each. Now the first career path as an artist that I'm pretty familiar with since I've been through that route we're going to talk about is full-time in-house artist / concept artist or illustrator. Either or one. So anyways, just some facts about it. The salary tend to be entry level 40K on average. To be honest, I was also hired at 40K entry level at BioWare when I first started, and then gradually, I think my second job I was paid 47,000 average. Now this information is more towards Canada, so US it might be a little higher or lower, not really sure, but this is Canadian salary. Anyways. This is the entry, this is average, a 60K-ish. I'm not too familiar. Certain companies have different salary standards, so we really have to see. Now, if you've been in the industry long enough, let's say 5 to 10 years plus, seniors tend to be paid way more. I think up to 100,000K plus. Sorry, not 100, just 100,000, 100,000 per year and up. So, I just including a quick tip on salary negotiation because usually when you land a job, they usually ask you how much you want to be paid. Now, a lot of artist friends and other teachers of mine have told me always ask 15 to 25% above how much you want to be paid, and then you negotiate from there. Sometimes they'll be like okay, and sometimes they'll kind of negotiate you down a little bit, but I think this percentage is pretty good to start with. So let's say you want to be paid like 50,000 a year, you want to go either 15 to 25% above that and then give that number to your employer, and then that's how you go from there. Anyways, enough about that. Let's start off by talking about a few career paths to full-time in-house artists. So I've included 2 major career paths that I think and have experience that I think is important to note, and then I also did a few quick pointers on other career paths which we will go through, and then each of them I have indicated the pros and cons. So let's get started with that. First career path is a very traditional one, so it's pretty much, finding a job through school. So the process of being a high school student, as you see here, really rough doodles. But I wanted to give you guys some kind of visual aid no matter how rough it is. Anyway, so student, and then of course you would apply for college. Now college, from my personal experience, is that we had to submit our high school report card, and from there on, the college would pick the top student percentage card, I think. The reason being I have I think I had an 80% average on my high school student card. I sent it into the college I wanted to apply for, and they actually got back to me really late. Now that really worried me, but I still got in with 80%. So it really depends on the college and what their standard is for accepting students with whatever mark they get on their report card. Now after you get in, you study in college, college is quite good, and I'm gonna go into that point later on. But after college, of course, usually with college programs, they would have a student exhibit at the end of the year, which is illustrated like here with our character here with the bow and the spectators. And now the schools are usually in charge of inviting industry people from various companies, and those industry people go to these exhibit called vernissage to scout out students or potential artists that they can hire. So these are the potential scouters checking out her work. So that's pretty much what we had at our art college, and I mentioned that just for the sake of this. And you know what, sometimes I think out of my class at the end of the year, we were only at 20 students, or actually not 20, around, I would say 12 to 15, and out of the 15, let's say, students, I believe 5 to 7 found jobs afterwards, and some of them were obtained through vernissage/student exhibit. So as you can see, you can certainly find job through school. However, it is still risky with any job career path. So I'm gonna go through the pros and cons. So pros, one of the big advantage for being in a school with other artists is that you can make friends. I remember when I was in high school, barely anybody was into anime or manga or that type of stuff that I was into, and or was into drawing. So it was pretty hard for me to make artist friends. So I was pretty much the only artist in my class. However, if you go to a school, art school, you will most likely meet a lot more artists and you'll make friends. Very good. Those are very important friends, because then later on in life, some of them will go on into different careers or company, and sometimes you can use that connection to your advantage if you're looking for a job, let's say. So that is one of the pros. And the second one, pretty important, is learning environment. It's so important to be in the environment with other artists because you motivate each other. There's a healthy amount of competitiveness in there as well. Actually, depending on what type of artist you are, if you're a little shy or if you're a little more competitive, it really depends. However, I think it's a good learning environment. Competitive sparks advancement, so there's that. And of course, another pro would be guidance. You would get guidance from teachers. Now, an important thing to keep in mind is that teachers does not make you a great artist. It's yourself. You really have to put in the work. If you don't put in the work with the guidance, I guarantee you won't get far. Because in my class we started out with around maybe 25 students, and then towards the end of the program we were up to 15-ish students. So you can see a lot of students dropped out because of the pressure, or because they thought the teacher would make them successful. No, they have to do it themselves, and some of them, I guess, couldn't do that or failed to complete projects, stuff like that. So really, the guidance is a plus. However, it is not everything. Now let's go into cons. So con would be a strict schedule, which is pretty much you have to wake up at a certain time, take the transit. If you're really far away like I was like 2 hours, actually 1 hour and a half away, going and back, so that's around 3 hours transit time each day. So I had to wake up early. That is on my con list because I hate waking up early, and definitely you need to be punctual for this. Another con would be project deadline. Sometimes if you're a very organized person, you wouldn't have to worry about this. However, this seems to be quite a bit of issue with some of my classmates. Deadline is quite important. You have to meet it, or sometimes you'll risk failing your grade. So that's one of my cons. And third one is irrelevant classes. Sometimes some of the classes is not something that you want to pursue. For example, I was in 3D animation, and now they had 3D animation, they had 2D animation, matte painting, concept art, a bunch of classes, and really only maybe half of them that I was interested in, mostly the ones that had to do with Photoshop. And now some of the programs out there in school, sometimes they focus more on traditional and not on digital with Photoshop programs. Sometimes you want to pursue Photoshop, but the program you're in is mainly focused on traditional, so that is a con that I would put irrelevant classes. Sometimes not everything they have to teach is something you want to learn, but hey, I think it's still worth it to go to school. On average, I think the school career path is a pretty solid one, and I would also recommend everybody to at least have a college level education, college/university, whichever you go after high school. You need at least one more level above. I mean, it's not necessary, but it's good to have. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about career path number 2, finding a job using the internet. Now this one is very common nowadays, but back when I was in high school, this was not as, I guess, not as popular or not as exposed, or people exposed their opportunities that they got by posting their art. But pretty much you're either a student or a hobbyist. This one is with or without college experience. You can do it without or with. So you're a student, you share your images and build a fan base, and then get scouted by companies. Now I've seen a lot of artists that just post their art online, fan art or original, whatever it is, of that company's game or just other fan art, and then they would get contacted by the company of said fan art or other company, and they would get hired that way. And we're gonna go through the pros and cons for this method. Now the pro is of course, without having a very, very strict schedule like you do with school, you have very flexible time. And then with that, you have personal freedom. You know, you can draw whatever you want, you can share whatever you're into, post it, and then kind of garner your fans that way. And a third pro is fan interaction. A lot of times fans will give you really nice words, encouragement, good critiques, you know, and then you would kind of push your style based on that or yourself. So fan interaction is quite important, but also a plus on this career path. And then the con would be mismanagement of time. Now it's very easy to mismanage your time with such flexible hours, such freedom. A lot of times I do it sometimes, like I sleep really late, and then wake up like in 5 p.m. or something like that, and half the day is gone and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful here, and it's very easy to let your schedule push your schedule back that way, because you kind of have the impression that you have all the time in the world, but you really don't. You have to work twice as hard for that. And then of course you have to depend on your fans and their sharing of your work to get exposure. Now this is probably one of the cons, the more cons out there. With schools, it's kind of easier for exposure because your teacher can bring in industry people, and then maybe your teacher have connections. You can get exposed that way. Now with online, you might have a lot more fans than you have of, let's say, compared to school, where you don't have as many peers around you. Let's say you have like 1,000 followers. In school you have like 100 peers that you evolve around. However, those 1,000 followers might not necessarily have the connection you're looking for. Like maybe they're just one eye candy, but they cannot offer you any job opportunity. That's what I mean. In that case, you really need to depend on your fans to share your work properly so the right eyes can see it. And then another con I would say is peerless environment, which I'm referring to is that you're not surrounded physically, interacting physically with other artists like you would in school. You wouldn't be able to hang out, joke around, critique each other's work, inspire each other, or have friendly competitiveness, which sometimes is really good to push you as an artist. So that is also one thing, which means you are heavily dependent on self-motivation. Sometimes that could be really, really hard. It's kind of easy for an artist to get discouraged or become negative of their work, such as art block and stuff like that. So in school, when that happens, I feel it's easier because you can talk to other artists and you guys can, I don't know, I just find it a lot more tolerable if you have someone there to someone you can relate to talk about stuff like that. So that is another con about this. Another thing I forgot to mention about the internet thing is online it is very easy to get negative, or to have the negativity get to you. So it's something that you really have to deal with very, very thinly. I'm not sure the word. You have to have a thick skin online. So yeah, it's probably want to talk more about this in another more related to online artist business. But anyways, so that's the two career paths that I went into more depth in. And then the other one is these are some other ones that I put aside but didn't make a really detailed slide about, but I'm gonna go into detail for each of them. So other career paths that you can pursue as how to progress into a full-time in-house concept artist or illustrator. My teachers from college actually recommended us for our final year to inquire at companies that, like game companies or movie companies, stuff like that, that has to do that you can find a job in. So inquire at a company. You literally have to walk in there, talk to the secretary, ask to speak to a manager or someone on the hire team, and then you would give out your portfolio personally to them. Now, one of the plus side on that is it gives a good impression. You're being proactive, which is good as well, but it requires a lot of legwork. So it's like you're hunting for a part-time job almost. Like you walk up to McDonald's, give your resume, but with this it's you're handing your portfolio to them. Now with this sometimes you might not hear back, so that's one of the risks, but most likely they will give you a response. Sometimes it takes so long to get a response, however, but that's with a lot of jobs as well. So here we have applying a job online. So it's quite easy to apply for online. However, the con would be you are not certain if they're gonna accept you or even if they're going to reply, because they probably get quite a bit of applications. Sometimes they don't reply for a month and then they suddenly pop out and be like, oh, hey, yeah, we got your application, however, So online application, it's easy and you can definitely do it, but I would not depend on this 100%. And of course, another career path for this is you get the job through connection. And okay, so with this method, I sometimes feel that your connection, either be family or just friends in general, if it's family, there's a chance that they're gonna undercut or underpay you because you are family. So that is one of the cons that I put. However, if you have a lot of connections, it is easy to get the job. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys something. I actually got my first job through connection, I feel. Partly due because after graduating, one of my teachers said that they might have an opening for entry-level concept artists. So I went in for an interview because of my teacher recommended me to BioWare, and he was part of BioWare, so he recommended me for interview. So that's how I got my first job. So as you can see, this definitely works. This way definitely works, but then again, you definitely need connection and a lot of it. Okay, now another career path is through interning. Interning is pretty much mostly through school after graduation. Some industry people will be looking for interns. Sometimes, some of them don't really pay, but they do offer experience. But you really have to be careful. Would you rather risk no pay for experience? If that is worth it to you, you should definitely go ahead. However, whatever it is, interning would definitely give you somewhat of experience, either good or bad, depending on whoever works at that company. The reason I say that is because I remember when I was in college, a few of my classmates were actually scouted by a indie game, and they offered them internship, however no pay. So my classmates went, but really the game did not come to fruit. So you take that as you will. It is a little risky, but whatever it is, if they offer to pay for your internship, I think that's definitely a good idea for that. Now I have a few other things I forgot to mention, which I'm going to do a quick slide, do some quick illustration or slides, and we're gonna get right to it. Alright guys, I did a few other pointers and we're gonna go through them. So taking a look back at the full-time in-house section, I totally forgot to mention the pros and cons. So the pro for full-time in-house concept artist or illustrator at a company would be stable pay and benefits. You would get insurance, you would get a steady pay every month, and you don't have to worry too much about that. And of course, you have stable hours. Now, depending on what type of person you are, you either love that or you don't like it. Me personally, I don't really like stable hours. I like flexible hours, which I can kind of play around with my schedule. But with a full-time in-house job, usually you would have to constrict yourself to a set timeline and stuff like that. And of course, another pro would be chance for promotion. Of course, if you work long enough at the company and well enough and work hard enough, you would get promoted. And another pro would be the peer environment. Now, this is a plus for me because I think that once you enter the work industry as an artist in a like a gaming or movie environment, you would be able to interact with your peers and you would be able to learn much more. Now, I think the one level below work environment, peer environment, would be school peer environment. So when you start working, it's like you level up even more from that experience, because chances are there's gonna be a senior that's way better than you and they can guide you as an artist. And this is pretty much what happened with me when I entered the full-time entry-level concept art position. I had upline and another concept artist where whom taught me quite a bit of things, so I'm very grateful for that. So those are the pros for this section. Okay, So for the cons, one of the things that I dislike about a full-time in-house concept artist is strict hours. I have to wake up at a set time. Similar to school, I did not like that. I'm someone who likes to draw very late into the night and wake up very late. So this conflicted with my style of my living style. But for those of you that are more into waking up early, this is totally fine. Another con that I did not like working as an in-house concept artist is the repetitiveness of the project. But then again, it really depends on the project, also based on the director. So, but from my experience, we had to do a lot of repetition of the same concept, and the direction wasn't too clear. So we spent a month on one single character concept, like put out a lot of variations, but then we'd go back again, scratch that, etc. So there's a lot of repetitiveness and a lot of stuff that doesn't really get done. So I did not like that. Did not like that at all on the concept side. However, if you're hired as an illustrator, that might be very different. Okay, so another con would be less freedom. So of course, when you get hired to do something, you don't really have too much say on what you do. You might get a little bit of creativity, but mostly you have to follow a guideline. So this is one of my cons, because I tend to do my own thing, so this does not fit my my aesthetic. So it's in the con. But for those of you that don't mind this could be easily scratched out. Another con is workplace drama. Of course, you get drama everywhere, your personal life, school, and of course in the workplace. Now, from my own experience, I tend to avoid drama. I tend to stay very low. However, I do have people I didn't like in the workplace, and that kind of went into my decision to quit my first job. I did not like just this one person. I'm not gonna name who, but that did went into the reason why I quit. I did not like working with them. Actually, I didn't work with them. I did not appreciate their presence, pretty much. So the thing is, I usually talk to a bunch of my coworkers where I think I would consider them as my friends, but then this one person would kind of intentionally cut in front of my conversation, and that is really annoying. And of course, they would act very awkward around me, so I did not like that. But anyways, as to any workplace, there's bound to be drama, and maybe you won't get along with some people or even your boss. So that is one of the cons to keep in mind. If you're one of those types that don't mind or don't really mind this type of stuff, then it's probably not in cons. But these are just what I consider to be cons of a full-time in-house job. So that is that. Now we're gonna move on to portfolio. Now I've been talking about portfolio here and there for school, but pretty much all these career paths, you would need a good solid portfolio. I'm gonna just give you guys a preview of what my portfolio looked like when I got the job, or got certain jobs. So getting a job is very dependent on your portfolio and your skills as an artist. That goes without saying. You would need a good portfolio to impress your employers so that they'd hire you. So these are some pointers that I've indicated on what I think a good portfolio should have, and what my teacher from college have told us about. But these pointers could all have changed nowadays. This is pretty much when I was still in school back in 2010-ish, I think, 2009 to 2012. I think it's 2012. So it's years ago. It might have changed. However, I still think it's a good guide. So Focus on what you excel at, but include a few other variations. What I mean by that is I am a character artist and I mainly focus on characters. So that means I would have more more pieces focus on characters than I do environments. As you can see, most of these pieces are character focused. However, I do have a few other variations, just slightly, some landscape with some dragons. Here's a more heavily focused on landscape, but still I have a character. This one's kind of landscape-ish. This one's definitely landscape-ish. This one is let me zoom in for you guys. So this was actually a school project where our matte painting teacher told us we had to do some matte painting. So this was it. And yeah, these are some variations. I also included this. My intention was just to let them know that I'm able to do some very, very not as good animal pieces compared to my characters. Another point to having a good portfolio for me is to have a combination of rougher, work in progress pieces as well as rendered pieces. So I included some rough pieces such as this one, and these ones. This one too. Actually, let me zoom in for you guys. Now what that tells your employer is, hey, look, this is my rough work, this is how it looks like. Sometimes they are interested in your process of how you get to the rendered pieces. Sometimes they don't care, it really depends. But it's still nice to include some of them just to show them your work process. And of course, include some really nice rendered pieces to tell them that, hey, look, this is what this level is what I can produce, pretty much at a rendered level. And of course, some live drawing is also good. I have included this. This is using a reference from the internet. I just painted. I didn't really include that much. I probably only had this one piece here, but it's still pretty nice. Maybe one or two pieces. And a few concept pieces is also good. By concept pieces, I mean something like this where you have a lineup of characters and you have exploration of different ideas, different clothes ideas, and then it would also be nice to include a few thumbnails as well. By thumbnails, I mean the black silhouette, and then you would go ahead and do some variation in design based on this silhouette. So this would also be considered concept because it's exploration of an idea compared to an illustration like this, which is more of a rendered piece. So yeah, if you are aiming to get a more concept artist job, I think including more of these pieces is important. However, if you're going for more of a illustrator, as in painting illustrations job, then more rendered pieces would be good. And last but not least, keep it diverse. So as you can see, I have a diverse range of character pieces, character focused pieces, because I'm aiming to get a job as a character artist and not as an environmental artist. If you are aiming for environmental artist job, then more landscape pieces would be good. So it really depends on what you're aiming for, and usually when you go in for a job interview, they are either looking for a character or environmental artist, and they usually let you know beforehand. And last but not least, another important thing to keep in mind is that teamwork is key. So teamwork is very heavy if you're working in a full-time in-house job as a concept artist, illustrator at a game company, etc. So in-house is heavy on teamwork and peer interaction. So you have to interact with your co-workers pretty heavily, I would say. Especially as a concept artist, you are pretty much between art director, 3D artist, animator. All of those departments depend. You are linked to all those departments. So that's that. And also you need to be open to critiques from your peers and boss. Now this is especially important. You have to be open to critiques and stuff like that, but don't worry, usually they're very professional about that, apart from the occasional poking fun at you because you're chummy with them. But yeah, you have to be very, very good at taking critiques from your boss and peers. And of course, you need to work well with others, and you have to have respect, manners. You can, I don't know, I guess working in a game company, you can be real chill, and you can joke around with your boss. However, you also have to have respect, which is pretty much implied for every work situation. Okay, so the next one is, oh yeah, in some cases I've heard from various sources, like other artists, or mostly from other artists and my coworkers from BioWare. In some cases, companies choose not to hire artists due to bad attitude. You would think people going in for an interview, they would behave their best, but that is not the case. From some cases that I've heard, certain artists have a tendency to be very egotistical and come off as very antisocial and very rude. So companies, no matter how good you are, they probably will not hire you. So have a good attitude, and yeah. And companies tend to value a good attitude second to art skill, which I think is true, because companies tend to want positiveness and creativeness, so negative behavior has no place in a work environment such as that. So that should be it for this section, full-time in-house, some insider knowledge as well as ways to get a job, but pretty much heavily dependent on your portfolio. So you would already need to be on a good level as an artist to be able to get a job as an in-house illustrator or concept artist. For the school career, I feel it's a little easier because you have the guidance. Your teacher will be able to tell you what you need to watch out for. If they don't, then they're probably not a good teacher, no offense, but if they don't, then I don't know. Career path 2, which is more dependent on you as an artist, since you are using the internet to put yourself out there, give yourself exposure. Now this one is a little bit tougher because you will have to be mostly self-taught, either through online tutorials, or if you take an online course, stuff like that. It is a little bit harder, I find, to get a job. However, if you're good enough, you will, I feel like there's a high chance you will get scouted out by the company. I've seen so many artists that start out as fan artists. They would draw a lot of fan art of that specific company's IP game, and then that company looks at them and then hires them for work. Probably not full-time, but part-time at least, or by contract. So as you can see, this is a little bit different from a traditional school path. And of course you have the other path, which you know, are a little bit more non-traditional, I would say, I guess. Not as traditional as the school path. And of course, having a good portfolio is very important, and teamwork is key. Alright guys, so let's finish off here with 2 extra categories that I wanted to talk to you about that is a bit more popular amongst hobby artists or just freelance artists out there. So we're going to talk about commercial freelance. I kind of wrote it the other way. And then there's the personal freelance. Now let's go through the commercial freelance. So commercial freelance is usually companies contract you to do work based for their game, product, or movies. So these works will be accompanied by a contract and with agreed upon price for your work. And usually they will use your work for commercial purpose, such as making posters out of it or use it to promote their product. So let's go through the fees or the payments that you can probably get with it. So on the lower pay, I think an acceptable amount would be 200 plus per illustration. The reason why I categorize low, mid, and high because these are based on my experience. So the lowest I've been paid for illustration was $200, and that was for illustration for a card game. So depending on what the company sells and what they hire you to do, they either pay you low pay, mid pay, or high pay. So in the case of a card game, and it was kind of a detailed illustration, they paid me 200. And now mid pay, I would categorize that as 1,000 plus per illustration. Could be 1 to 2K, could be 1 to 3K, but at least 1,000 per illustration. Now mid pay, I usually see this in mobile card games or mobile characters where there's gacha. So they would hire a lot of artists to do illustrations, and usually I think acceptable pay would be 1K per illustration. So if a company approach you about that, you can definitely propose 1K and above per illustration. Now high pay is from bigger companies. Now these are companies like Microsoft, Riot Games, I think Blizzard. I haven't have experience with that, but I think because bigger companies usually pay you more for the illustrations, and high pay, I would categorize that as 5,000 and plus per illustration. So these are the ranges depending on which company approaches you, and of course keep in mind that smaller companies probably cannot compensate too much. I think the highest they could go is mid-pay, so 1 to 3K per illustration, and bigger companies you can negotiate for a higher paying illustration or per illustration. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. So usually the process goes contract. They will send you a contract plus a description of what they are looking for. You sign, send it to them, and they sign, send it back to you. Make sure that both of you sign so that it's legally binding. And if they refuse to pay you, you can take them to court because you have the contract. And after the contract, what end up happening is you would have to do a few variations based on what they want, and then I guess depending on how picky they are, you guys would go back and forth and lock onto one design, and then you would finish rendering a final piece. And sometimes they would ask you to edit it a little bit here and there, and then finally they pay you. Sometimes it goes, they pay you half upfront and then half once the job is complete. But from experience, from the bigger companies, they usually pay after the work has been done. So based on my experience, it's like that, but it could also be half and half. Okay, so now the pros and cons. A pro for contract freelance work would be, of course, you would get higher pay for it compared to just working on commissions, because companies, they make money, so they have money to spend. And it's good for your resume because then you can list it under your resume, like I work for Microsoft or this company and this company, and it could make you a bit more appealing to future job hunting. And the con of this type of work is that there is a restricted deadline, so of course you need to finish it on a timely basis. You cannot be late, it's very important. And another con would be a lot of revision. So a lot of times companies will be like, oh, can you change this? Can you change that? Can you do another variation here? I'm not sure if that works. So there's a lot of revision sometimes based on your employer. So that is one of the cons if you don't like to keep working on a piece for days or weeks or month, then this might be a little tricky, but it depends. If it pays well, then you have to sacrifice one for the other. So these are two examples of contracted work that I've done in the past. This one is for a book cover for a author. It's quite old, but I did really enjoy it. This one is for Tale of Berseria. It was commissioned by DeviantArt through Namco. Namco something. Oh man, I totally forgot the company. Let me search it. Oh yeah, sorry. This is was commissioned through DeviantArt by Bandai Namco. They hired me to do like a little promotion for them and paint a piece of the main character, and that was pretty fun actually. Okay, so now we're gonna go to a more, I feel, a bit more relevant to you guys because if you're a hobby artist, you could definitely do this, and I think more artists are able to do freelance personal, which is commissions for online fans, mostly used for personal purposes, not for commercial. They're not gonna sell your art, they're just gonna collect your art because they like it. So that's personal freelance, and I think this is a bit more relatable to most artists out there. Even if you're a professional artist, meaning you are in the industry, you're a senior, you can still take personal commissions for that extra cash. So I actually got quite a bit of questions on how to price commissions for those of you that are just starting out to do some commissions for that purpose. Anyways, so I wrote down pay varies per artist. If you're new to this and not sure how much you should charge, change that. Price your art based on time taken to finish a piece. Example, it takes you 4 hours to finish one commission. Either that's a sketch, a portrait, or a full body if you're really fast. Then you would multiply that by an hourly rate which you think you deserve. I put down $20 an hour because $20 is a pretty above average wage that I think is good, but honestly you can price it much higher depending on how good you are and how much fans you have. So just consider that. And 4 hours times 20 equals $80. So effectively you could charge $80 for that set commission, and you would price it this way. This way you don't end up underselling yourself or overselling yourself if you're new to this. I've seen a lot of very good artists online undercharge themselves, and they're wondering how to charge, but they're scared to charge an expensive price. And I totally understand that, because if you follow a this Twitter account called For Exposure, that's FOR Exposure at Twitter, there is quite a bit of people online that are not willing to pay for artists, but trust me, there are people that are willing to pay for good art, and they wouldn't mind dishing out $80 or even a few $100s for those serious collectors. And what you want is to aim at those serious collectors out there. So don't undersell yourself, and price it the way that I suggested if you're new to this. And the process of doing this type of stuff, doing the commission business, is usually I suggest having them send you half of the fee up front, and then of course after you get that, you start on the work in progress. Usually it's not as tedious as the commercial contract work. This one you can be a bit more chill, a bit more relaxed. So work in progress, and the two of them, they're happy, then you finish the piece, maybe give them a few little variations in between the sketch and the finished piece, and once they're happy, you don't send them the full res. You can put a little watermark on it, and then after they pay you the rest of the fee, then you send them the full resolution piece, and that'll be that. And usually people are quite happy because what ends up happening is they'll follow through with the follow the work in progress, and then maybe some other work in progress, and so that they make sure it's good and they like it, and then the finished piece. Usually I find it's easier to please your clients when it's personal commission than of a commercial contract I wouldn't say commission, but freelance work. So it's a lot easier to please your fan online than it is to please a company that's trying to market your art towards their product. So yeah, so the pro for personal commission or personal freelance is flexible hour. You definitely have more flexible hours. Your fans online or clients are a bit more accepting of delays as long as you inform them, because generally I think people are very nice online that commission you, that agree to commission you. Another pro is artistic freedom. A lot of the times they're okay with you putting your own interpretation into the character, so they're not as strict on that. But for contract commercial work, it's very, very strict on what they are looking for and what they want to see from you. So they're like, oh, I want to see that specific style in that pose, etc. So it's a lot more strict commercially versus personal. And the con is, of course, the pay is much lower compared to how much you can ask from a company. Of course, not everybody has company money, so of course the pay would be lower. But if you enjoy being more free as an artist, personal commission would definitely be a good choice. And of course, there is also the risk of not getting paid, although very rare, because you effectively hold the finished product. You withhold it until they pay you the full price, and then you give it to them. So, but however, be careful of not getting paid right away to deliver your final product, because then they can take it and run. So definitely have to be careful there. There is a risk of not getting paid, although if you take the necessary steps, there is no way that will happen. But yeah, oh gosh, okay. So these two pieces are example of commissions that people have pieces that people have commissioned me for. This one, I think it was a personal commission of a character of a novel. The author contacted me and asked me to do his portrait. And then this one is another personal commission from one of my patrons. And yeah, that was back in the days where I had time to do a bit of commissions. And all these, I feel these two right here, freelance work, is very possible to do when you're in school, even when you're in high school. If you're really good, then people want it, then you can do freelance during high school, college, and then even full-time jobs as something that's not related to art, or if you're related to art. But keep in mind that sometimes if you are already in full-time in-house artist, sometimes your company will not allow you to take freelance commercial contracts, but they might allow you to do personal commissions for your fans. So just keep that in mind. Let's see what else we can cover. Oh yes, so as I've said, you can definitely do these two while you're still in school. I think I started taking personal commissions when I was still in high school, and because it was easier as a high school student to do personal commissions rather than freelance commercial contracts. I think only in college. I was in college when I got my first contract-based work from company, mostly from an online gaming company. I think one was for Mafia War, and one is for, I think, I should definitely try to hunt down some of, oh no, it was for a early Facebook game of like these characters that they use for their game. So that was like my first commercial contract, and I got the job through exposure, I believe, online, because I started posting my stuff right in high school throughout college and then now. So I'm very heavily dependent on social media, and sites like DeviantArt, ArtStation, very, very good for people that, for those of you that are looking for freelance work. And of course, most of my work is obtained through online exposure. So you can see how important it is, and how important it is to, when you share someone's piece, you have to make sure to credit them properly. So if someone's interested, they will look them up. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to go through. Of course, there's so many other ways for artists to make money. It's no longer the starving artist image. A lot of people have that misconception. Artists are not starving. I guess, unless I think it is a bit more complicated to make a living as a traditional artist for more classical background, but I have no experience in that. However, if you are an illustrator or like a digital artist, it's definitely not starving artists. As long as you practice, you get good at what you do, I guarantee you will not be starving. And that is one misconception people have about that. And I mean, if you guys like this guide, I will make another one on a few other ways to make a career as an artist, because there's so many, such as artists that makes merchandise for your fans, stuff like that. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that. This is a very, very different voiceover tutorial or guide that compared to my usual one, so I hope you guys won't be too put off by this. And I know that whenever I start talking about money and stuff like this, or anything that has to do with money and what you love to do, there's always a backlash. There's always people are always gonna, I guess, always gonna judge you in some negative way. But yeah, I think it's also very important to say that money is a big part of an artist's life. If you want to pursue this seriously, you cannot, I'm just gonna say it, you cannot take what those people say too seriously. So you have to pick. You either choose to take what people say seriously, like those more negative things. I'm not talking about positive things, negative things, or making a living out of what you love. So don't let people decide what's best for you. I know a lot of you have been telling me this, which is so great, because I do get a lot of backlash for being successful on Patreon. Yes, I'm making a lot of money, but it is also what I do, and I hope this guide helps some of you have a better idea of what's to come, and hopefully the information is still relevant to the current days, because these are information from maybe 7 years ago or 5 years ago from my experience. But anyways, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for the support. And of course, let me know if you guys want another part 2. For part 2 I'll probably talk about other stuff that's kind of niche. Probably gonna get a lot of backlash for that as well, but let me know if you guys want another tutorial on that. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next voiceover tutorial, and have a great day.